When we weaponize guilt, particularly mom guilt, it boils down to a subconscious program we run that we're not enough, that we're not worthy, and we're not deserving. And it must stop. So let's unpack mom guilt, shall we? We generally have mom guilt in two ways. We're afraid we've ruined our children, and we have guilt over pursuing our own dreams and our own ideals, because we think that we're leaving or abandoning our children in pursuit of our own dreams, and therefore we're selfish and ruining our children. So if you followed me for any length of time, I love to see how things always have its opposite. So everything, every principle, every tool can be used as a tool or as a weapon. And guilt is no exception. So let's unpack guilt, starting really simply with the definition of guilt. If you're going to use guilt as a tool, which is actually a really, really powerful tool to help you learn and help you grow, it shows up as regret or remorse for wrongdoing. So guilt can be a very powerful tool to help you be responsible for any wrongdoing that you've done and then to correct it and move forward. But too often we weaponize guilt. And this is the definition of weaponized guilt. Feelings of deserving blame, especially for imagined offenses or from a sense of inadequacy. It's also self-reproach. Now, I remember when I had children, and I have 4 children of my own, and when I had kids, even before I had kids, I vowed I was going to do it better than my parents. I'm pretty sure if you're a parent, you can relate to this. I was never going to be the reason my kids were in therapy because I would not hurt them and I would not ruin them like my parents ruined me. Now, having said that, my parents did the best they could. So I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. They were not horrible parents. And I am very aware that there are horrible parents out there. I had flawed parents. All of us also had flawed parents. So I'm not talking about the abusive, horrible things that parents can do to their children, but I am talking about the hurt and the pain we cause our children because we're flawed human beings. But I also remember seeking validation from Jeremy, my husband, from my girlfriends. I would even ask for feedback from my own kids about how good of a job I was doing as a mother. Now, little side note to that, don't ever ask for feedback from your kids about how you're doing as a parent, particularly if they're between the ages of 13 and 15, because they will give you some very clear feedback that is not very constructive. Because if your kids were anything like mine from the years 13 to at least 15, I was dumb as a bag of rocks and could not ever get anything right. Neither was anything I did enough for them. So just beware and take caution. I remember when my kids were teenagers, and I've got young adults. Most of my children are young adults. We've still got a teen at home that we're raising. And I was speaking to a friend of mine and just telling him I never wanted to hurt my kids. It was just really important that I was a really great mom because I didn't want to hurt my kids. And he said something that was actually quite profound in its simplicity. He didn't say it with any judgment. He said it with just pure observation, and he was stating a fact. He said, "Oh, you're going to hurt your children because you're human and you're flawed. And we don't mean to hurt our kids, but we inevitably hurt our kids because we're not perfect either." And as simple as it was, in that moment, I felt myself loosening the impossible standard that I had put on myself about being a perfect parent and about being a perfect mother. It was a really amazing moment of liberation where I just felt myself being unbound by that just a little bit. You know, no one's ever heard of dad guilt because dad guilt doesn't really exist. Now, that doesn't mean that men and fathers don't have guilt about hurting their children. It's that they don't marinate in it and stew in it and talk about it all the time. I know this because I was talking to a man about this, and I said, dad guilt's not a thing. And he's like, no, like we do feel guilt. Like we feel guilty as as parents and as fathers, because you're like, yeah, we feel bad that we're ruining our kids. But then we think, they'll get over it. I got over it too. They'll get over it. And I thought, wow, that's freeing, because moms don't do that. Moms don't ever think, yeah, I've ruined them, but they'll get over it. We think, oh no, what have I done? Now I got to make it up to my kid. How could I spend this time away from them when they ended up having separation anxiety? I shouldn't have gone out with the girls. Or how could I have gone crazy when they got a low grade because I knew they weren't actually doing their homework or putting any sort of effort into it, and now I've damaged them somehow? Or like, we just go into this really dark spiral with mom guilt. In fact, I would spend entire nights with my girlfriends having these girls' nights, and we were just talking about mom guilt and each of us wanting validation from each other. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube right now and you're like tracking with me here and you can relate to this, put a 100 emoji in the comments below, so I know that me and my 3 girlfriends are not the only ones that have done this at a girls' night. We were always seeking outside validation. And here's the problem with that. What mom guilt, this version of mom guilt, boils down to is enoughness. It's running a subconscious program of not being good enough. And all of us run this program to one extent or another, but women run it really deeply with pretty much everything. They're not good enough. They're not worthy of it enough. They don't deserve it quite yet. They haven't earned the right to it yet. It gets really tangled really, really quickly. And so until you can start mentally claiming and owning your enoughness, that you're good enough, you're worthy enough, you're deserving enough to live the life that you desire and to be a powerful mother, you'll never be able to fully lay down mom guilt. And if this is new to you, I did a whole episode on You Are Enough and broke down enoughness for you. So go watch that episode or listen to that episode on enoughness, and that will help this sink in more deeply for you. Again, when we weaponize guilt, particularly mom guilt, it boils down to a subconscious program we run that we're not enough, that we're not worthy, and we're not deserving. And it must stop. And it won't stop until you start mentally owning and claiming that you already are enough. You already are worthy. You already are deserving. And there's nothing that you have to do in order to be worthy and deserving and enough, because you already came that way and you will continue to be that way. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't also skill up in our parenting or skill up in wanting to reach our dreams and go for those big goals. But as far as our value is concerned, that is intrinsic. Our enoughness is intrinsic. It's never, ever on the table. So let's talk about using guilt as a tool. When we use guilt as a tool, it shows up as regret. Regret and remorse are fabulous tools that we can learn by and then use to course correct and then grow from. I hear people all the time that they have this goal to live life with no regrets, right? I'm going to live life with no regrets. Do you know what you're doing? You're setting yourself up for huge amounts of disappointment because you're flawed. You're gonna hurt yourself. You're going to hurt others. There's a saying, hurt people hurt people. And when I'm hurt, and before I learned these skills, our natural inclination is to hurt somebody else and to lash out. So rather than having this impossible standard that you're not going to live life with any regrets, it makes you not have responsibility. It makes you... It actually sets you up for such great disappointment. Instead, make a goal to learn from the regret and help you quickly change course when needed and help you to move forward a better person. Regret and remorse help you to take responsibility for your part in any sort of painful situation. And since we're talking about mom guilt, we'll relate it to a painful situation with your child. Too often as moms, we take 100% responsibility for the whole situation when maybe it's only 5% ours and the rest is our child's. But as women, we've been taught to take responsibility for every other person's emotions and feelings. And so we're always trying to make sure everybody's happy. That doesn't help anyone, because then it doesn't allow others to take responsibility for their own responses and their own reactions. But when we'll allow regret and remorse and to teach us and to help us move forward, and we take responsibility for only our part, but we take 100% responsibility for our part in this situation, and we show up for that, and it looks like an apology. And it can be really hard to apologize to our children, because I think there's part of us that we don't want our kids to know that we're flawed and that we're just human, even though we do, but we really want to show up in a powerful way for our children. And I'll tell you what, when you will come to your child after you've all calmed down and said, hey, you know what? I didn't handle that very well. I apologize. Please forgive me. It actually skyrockets their respect for you in that situation. Now, here's the key to letting this really be a tool. You then must move forward from it. Don't keep going back and apologizing. When we use guilt as a weapon, we replay that situation over and over in our mind, and then we take up the guilt beat-up stick and whack ourselves over the head and stab ourselves in the heart with it. Don't do that. You've taken responsibility for your part in the situation. You have owned it. You've apologized. You've asked for forgiveness, and now you move forward. Whether your child accepts your forgiveness or your apology has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. But in your mind, it gets to be over, and you're moving forward. This takes practice. When you'll claim your enoughness and your worthy and your deservingness to chase your dreams and to go after your goals, even after you're a mother, you model something so empowering to your children, especially to your daughters, that you were a woman and you were a person before you were a mother. And that you have your own identity separate from your children that you can still honor while also honoring your sacred role as a mother. And as you do this and you show them that you also need time for you, that your goals and your dreams are also worth pursuing, and that there will be times when you can't read them a bedtime story every single night, but that's what dad is for, or that's what older sibling is for. You show them such beautiful power and such a beautiful, it's such a beautiful example of, yes, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm also a woman and a person. And it's a powerful example of taking a stand for the and. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. And yes, you're going to mess up. And yes, you're going to hurt others as you go. And when you feel that regret and you feel that remorse for your wrongdoing, you can rectify the situation really, really fast, course correct, and move forward together with everyone feeling honored. Isn't that great? Like, no room for mom guilt. No room for mom guilt whatsoever. If you've liked this conversation and you want to be around this more, we are getting ready to do a 4-day Success Without Struggle free online workshop. So get yourself registered for that. You can click on the link in the show notes, or you can go to prosperityapproach.com/challenge. We are going to spend a powerful 4 days together. We're going to learn all of the different tools that allow you to reach that next level of success in business, in money, in relationships, in your own health, in your own spirituality, without having to claw your way to that next level. I'm all about high levels of success with zero struggle. You're going to get your very own playbook so that you can follow along. It will be so helpful to keep you on track while we're doing this live workshop. It's also going to be your $1 million resource moving forward. You're going to get your very own success expert so they can customize it right directly to you and make sure that this is powerful and transformational for you. So come join us over at prosperityapproach.com/challenge, and we'll see you over there at the workshop. And until then, remember, prosperity becomes you.